and welcome. My name is Reginald Peters. I'm the District College Transition Facilitator. In today's professional development, we will be discussing how you can help your students become a master student. Let's take a look at this YouTube video.
Please be quiet and courteous to others and silence your cell phones now.
Every day, millions of people go through the same routine while life passes them by.
That's just a quick look at how you can help your students achieve what they need to achieve. There's a distinct similarity between what students can do to become a master student in your classroom and also what students can do to help them cross the borderline, to help them also do that in college. And the question that you should ask yourself is, what you're doing in your classroom, will it help them to be a master student in college? Because if the translation doesn't exist, if what you're doing in your classroom cannot help them transition them to the post-secondary arena, then there's an issue. Today, let's look at these things. Today, we will analyze master student qualities. We will assist students in applying master student qualities to their lives, and we're going to help students develop self-awareness and self-direction. The self-awareness and the self-direction are the two main things, because all too often our students are not self-aware, or our students are not able to go in the direction by themselves. As often as we say, we can lead a horse to water, but we can't make them drink. Well, the thing is, how do we get students to take that drink of water on their own? And that's the main thing that we're going to talk about in today's professional development. Ponder this. I said, did you know that discovery leads to awareness? Intention leads to commitment, which naturally leads to focused action. It is up to you as a teacher to help that student get to a focused action. But first, we have to make that student aware. And then once we make them aware, we have to get them to intend to do something. And once they intend to do something, then that's going to get committed. The question I ask you is, how do you help students discover in your classroom? How do you make things aware? Because once they're able to do that, then once they propel to the next level of post-secondary education, then they will already have the key for foundation, that ground plan already set up, and that's where you play a part. Thought-provoking quote. I want you to think about this. By Hector Otto. Change and growth takes place when a person has risked himself and dares to become involved with experimenting with his own life. Take a second to think about that quote. Again, change and growth takes place when a person has risked himself and dares to become involved with experimenting with his own life. The great philosophers. Those are the type of things that we are discussing. When you're truly able to get to know the greats and what happened during that time, and how the things of the past, especially with literature and artwork, how they affect that of today, then and only then can we move forward. But all too often we don't pull these things, we don't emphasize these things to students. And when we don't emphasize these things to students, they don't know. And it is up to you, the teacher, to make sure that they know. Discover your values and discover your interests. Well, you could say, or the students could easily say, well, hey, Mr. Peters, I don't need college to do that. But you know what, at the same time, if you look back on your past experience as a college student, if you look back at that time, you can see that there are certain values that you start to apply to your life, because as you went along that journey of education, You learn little things. You learn something from this class, or you learn something by being in this group activity. So you pick those things out, and therefore you start to transform into a new person. You also may discover new interests. You may have taken that class that you never thought, that intro to theater class. And I'm using that as an example because that's what I used to teach, and I've seen it. So you go into intro to theater class, and all of a sudden you're amazed. You find that you love that topic, and all of a sudden you then find yourself as a theater major. Okay? Those are the things that students need to do. So, are you helping students to discover new interests in your classroom? Are you helping them to discover new values? Because even though those are values of higher ed, I think it is important to say that these are the things that are also valuable within your classroom. Let's just go further. Let's talk about broad vision. Don't just be the leaf of a tree, be a branch. Okay? We cannot be so concerned with our one specific field. The students cannot only have this tunnel vision. They have to be open. They have to think, and they have to think about how all the pieces of the puzzle fit. If the students are only looking at themselves, and we only paint the picture as that they are just one piece of puzzle that stands alone, then they're not going to have that broad vision. And I basically said, let's look at the liberal arts. Okay. The main thing I want you to take away from this is liberal arts is going to promote the critical thinking. Okay? It's going to help us with the half-truths, the racisms, and as we looked at things today, this world is more chaotic than anything. The prejudices that are out there, when you work with the liberal arts, this basic form of reading, writing, speaking, and listening, and able to do that, able to take that skill and to maximize that skill, then you're going to be able to help that student become a master student. And if you're helping that student to be a master student for higher ed, you're also going to be doing that in your classroom, which is also going to be just as helpful. Let's look at this YouTube video and watch.
I think the liberal arts matter now more than ever because we're in a world where you have to connect dots that aren't immediately apparently connectable. And to be able to move in your mind from Greek philosophy to the sciences to Anthony Trollope to JFK and the Cuban Missile Crisis, to be able to think as broadly and as deeply as you can is the key to success in this world, the world that's coming into being. And I have no doubt that the liberal arts are more relevant than ever. The problem with learning only skills is that the task is changing all the time. So the world into which I graduated 25 years ago, if I had prepared simply skills, the world would have moved on. The ability to think, the ability to learn, the ability to look at things critically and balance and try to figure out a way forward is a perennial and renewable resource.
I simply showed that video. I showed that video simply to talk about, so that you can see just a perspective. Because I think all too often, especially when we get into liberal arts and all of those academics, a lot of people feel that liberal arts are not necessary. They feel that liberal arts shouldn't exist, or whatever the case is. But I wanted that video, you to see that video. Let's look at our values. The practical, okay? Discover and refine our values. We already leave. Students are already in high school and already have a set of core values, yes. But then at the same time, they're students. So those values may not be exactly what we need for them to be or what we want them to be. Well, move on to higher ed. Well, they're going to be able to align those values, okay? To question, discover whatever it is that they are leaning towards, or maybe something that they haven't even found yet. Determine ways that we commit our time and spend our money. I think that's a big core value. And even students now, as we look, going back to the economy, as we look to the economy, that's going to be something that's going to be a major step as we move forward. How will we spend our money? Gas is going up. The cost of living is going up. So what will their value be? And then even as I ask this, what is your value as a teacher? How do you commit your time? And how do you spend your money? And I think by sharing these things with your students, and I'm not saying become preachy, but by sharing these things with your students, you can give a core example and help guide the way to help them become this master student. I even talked about interests a little bit earlier. You know, you think about when you go to college, and especially me, I grew up in a small town. Dangerfield, Texas is what the town was called, and it was about, I would say like 2,500 people, 3A school, 110 in my graduating class. And it wasn't until I moved to Dallas and attended the University of Texas at Arlington where I really got a chance to meet people with a variety of backgrounds and just really embodied that diversity. And I think that all too often students are not exposed, okay, to diverse groups. I don't think that they have the opportunity. Well, they do have the opportunity sometimes, but it's just something that they don't do. It's no good. It's no bad. It's just it doesn't happen. But when you attend post-secondary education, and when you have that opportunity, you do have the opportunity to walk in someone else's shoes. You do have an opportunity to see different perspectives. You do have the opportunity to see that there's other people out there who may be quote-unquote different, but at the same time, you're the same, and we're all the same. I think that's interest is a big part of that. The question that I ask for you is, especially speaking of diversity, how do you promote and how do you celebrate diversity in your classroom? Do you celebrate and promote diversity in your classroom? That's just something to think about as well. Another thing to look at as interest is to make effective choices, base those choices on a variety of academic and personal experiences. I always tell students and I tell people that nothing takes the place of an experience. You look at movies, for example, how many of you decide that you're going to go to a movie based off of what you read online by some critic? And neither right nor wrong if you do, but the question that I ask is, does that critic know you? Yes, you may agree with them after you've seen the movie, but at the same time, you won't be able to fully be able to agree with them until you've actually seen it for yourself, until you've been there, done that. And so I think that's important to get students to realize that as well, that they have to have these experiences in order to understand what's fully going on. So if you have a student that says, oh, I'm not going to college because my baby's brother, older brother, whatever the case, said that college wasn't fun and didn't enjoy it. No. That may be one perspective, but that's not everybody's perspective as you look. We talked about the world's greatest and what does that mean? And basically it is this, okay? Great works. We raise our standards. By learning, regardless of what field it is, if you're studying science, if you're studying math, and you're learning about the people who contributed to that field, then you are allowing yourself, you're putting yourself in a path of greatness. When you're in your classroom, you only give the students the best of the best because you want them to be great at it. Well, college is the same thing. He's giving them the best of the best so they can simply be good at what they do, so that they can raise the standards, so they can raise the bar of thinking. We learn to distinguish what is superficial and fleeting from what is lasting and profound. You think about artists as we look at this, the ones that are superficial and fleeting and the ones that are lasting and profound. Look at the artists that are here. Look at the artists that have been around since you were a kid. And then you look at the artists who they were a star today, but then they're gone tomorrow. Okay? That's what we mean when we're talking about the world's greatest. We're transformed. Getting to know them exercises our minds just as running exercises our body. And I love this quote. I love it because all too often people think that hey, I'm going to the gym, I'm working out, and people take great pride in their physical look and this physical appearance that they have, but there's people who don't exercise their minds. And if you don't exercise your mind, if you compare that to a body, it's going to get fat as well. So I think that's a key example that you can use for students, especially guys. When guys, especially, and throw in statistics, especially when the number of guys who are not in college falls between the black and Hispanic sector. So when you have these guys that want to understand the value of higher education, use that as an example, because we know those guys are going to enjoy sports, they're going to enjoy the football, they're going to enjoy the basketball, and they may even participate in it. But when you compare them, when you use that example of comparing exercising your body and exercising your mind, maybe that example would get them to open up a little bit more and see things a little different. Let's talk about the skills across the careers, okay? Think about you. Some of you may not have started off directly teaching. Some of you may have come from other sectors of the job force, and that's excellent, wonderful, welcome to education. But I can tell you this, your students that you have today will not be in their same job for 30 years like my parents have and looking forward to retire. That's just not the way it works anymore. We're in an environment of constant change, and as cliche as it is, if we don't change, then we're going to fall behind. You have to think about that as a teacher. As a teacher, are you constantly doing things to move ahead? Are you constantly changing as education changes? Or are you still playing or teaching, if you will, like you were in 1999? Trust me, if you're still teaching like you were in 1999, somebody's being left behind. Because the way students are in 1999 are not the way students are today. I'll give you this example. If you look at technology and where we're at and things like that, all too often and I'm going to use cell phones, whether it's policy or not, we take away cell phones from students. When it comes down to it, that's what they use. That is their way to access internet. That is the way they access things globally. It is the way they communicate. And so because that's not something that we're accustomed to, we decide that they don't need it or they do it too much or whatever the case may be. The question is, who are we to decide that when that's all they have known? Who are we to decide that when, I walk into a restaurant and the 3-year-old has an iPad and playing games? I remember playing the computer games on an Apple IIe, Oregon Trail. And that wasn't until I was in the 8th grade. I didn't know anything about a computer until I was in the 8th grade for the most part. Actually, I'll take it back. Maybe 6th or 7th that I saw them. But at the same time, as far as getting on them and working on them, no. So just because something didn't happen with us or within our time doesn't mean that it's not right for the children of today. And that means that we're going to help stay on top of things. That means that we're going to help them resolve conflicts, set goals, and relate to people of different things if we're able to see these things and recognize these things within ourselves. In order to understand the values of higher education and where we're going, we also have to think about motivation. We also have to think about motivating the students, and we also have to think about where do the students get their motivation from. We as teachers we can do things, as I've talked about, things that you can mention to help motivate them. But at the same time, the motivation has to come within the student. Again, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And it's the same thing with students, but at the same time, we as educators can do things to help motivate the students. We as educators, by showing that we care, by showing passion in what we do, and showing passion for life, can motivate students to achieve greatness. Again, let's take a look at this YouTube video. And there is a problem, so I'll be back.
What we do in life echoes in eternity.
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it.
Life is scary. Get used to it. There are no magical fixes. It's all up to you.
But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
What am I doing with my life? Am I living it, or am I just, going to some humdrum job that I don't really want to be at? Doing some minuscule task, getting paid to be a mindless drone? Or am I out there living life on my terms, the way I want to live it, doing the things that I want to do?
Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We were all meant to shine as children. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same, as we are liberated from our own fear.
It's like you have to save your own life. Nobody's going to be able to save it for you. So we have to do what we have to do, no matter what it is.
Now, if you know what you're worth, then go out and get what you're worth. But you gotta be willing to take the hits and not pointing fingers saying you ain't where you want to be because of him or her or anybody. Cowards do that, and that ain't you. You're better than that.
The champion inside of you, and whatever it is that you choose to turn that champion loose toward, attaining whatever dream that it is that you have is your own, but do it, and you can.
So we just watched a video that talked about excuses, and as you know, students will always have 1,000 excuses, along with adults. We sometimes have 500 excuses. But the same, as you look at it, we have to find a way to remove these excuse barriers that students also often come up with, which a lot of times are also the barriers of higher education. And a lot of it is, I'm just not in the mood. A lot of times we're not in the mood. Will you do this? I'm not in the mood. Will you do that? I'm not in the mood. Well, how do we take that away from students? Well, there's two things that we can look at. We can look at Outlook 1, where we focus on the self-discipline, the willpower, and motivation. And then we look at Outlook 2, which is mysterious, determinate birth, and it's hard to come by. Now, what do we mean by that? Well, number one, you need to be willing to change. You, as teachers, have to convince your students that they are willing to change. And we can do that by changing our minds and our bodies, because once we change our mind about something, then we can change our whole attitude about it. Once students think that they can have access to higher education, then everything else will kind of come into play. Now, I'm not going to say there's going to be obstacles down the way, but things will be different for them. New doors will open. They have to also understand the message. And the question that I ask you as an educator is, what message are you delivering about higher ed? What message are you sending to your students? Of course, you have a degree, yes, but do the students do the students know your story? Did you successfully go through college with no trials or tribulations? Or did you yourself have obstacles to overcome? And if you had obstacles to overcome and things that hindered you, at some point, in some way, these stories will also benefit the students. But they need to hear that. They need to hear that from you, because after all, you do play a huge impact in their roles. I cross my heart, I promise. How many times have we said that? I cross my heart, I promise. Well, here's what you need to do in order to promise. And this is what you need to do to get your students to realize that. Then here's the main thing to take away from this, is that they need to set the goals, and they need to be clear about it, and they need to commit themselves to do it, and then just do it. Put it into action. Same thing with you. You may decide that, hey, this weekend I'm going to do this. And you've been saying that same thing for 5 weekends, but guess what? You never have completed it. Or there may even be something that you may be doing for your personal life. Maybe you said, hey, I'm going to get a master's by this time, but you know, that was 5 years ago, and you still are saying that you're going to get a master's. Well, set the goal, okay? Were you clear about it? Did you commit yourself to it? And did you keep your word? Keeping your word is not for anybody else, but more specifically, it's about keeping your word for you. And when you keep your word for you, and it's important to you, then everything else transcends down the road. Let's talk about the complete makeover. Change. Change is a word that we're all afraid of, because that means that something is going to be different than what it used to be. Change is not always a bad thing. I, on the other hand, always welcome change, because for me, change is an opportunity to discover something new. Change is an opportunity to learn, and change is an opportunity to grow. Okay? So when you change things, you change everything. You change the outlook. You change the background of what things could be. And I'm not saying it's going to be scary, and I'm not saying that it's going to be easy, but these are the things that you have to contemplate to students as well. You have to tell students these things, to let them know that, you know what, there's going to be some struggles, there's going to be some obstacles, but if we're guiding them to think independently, if we're guiding them to be self-disciplined, if we're guiding them to be master students, then they're going to have an easier time going over these bumps in the road. They're going to have an easier time being able to make decisions for themselves, as opposed to just falling flat on their face. My granddad always says you have to pay the cost to be the boss. That was his main thing. And if I don't take anything away from him, or if I just didn't learn anything, it is that you pay the cost to be the boss. Because you know what? You realize that all behaviors have payoffs and costs, regardless of what it is. And you have to compare the costs and benefits of any behavior, because those are what fuel your motivation. It's what fuels our motivation. The students, yes, they are younger, but they are no different than you and I. So communicating these things are going to be essential for us helping them to become master students. And not only just master students, but it's going to be essential for us helping them to discover what's what in our classroom. Heed the message, people. Okay? So we talked about that. We talked about that example as far as you as a teacher, if you wanted to get your master's degree, and it's been 5 years, and you haven't gotten that master's degree. Well, you have to think about this. Just like a student needs to think about these things too. Well, let's just say that it's been 5 years. You say you're going to have a master's degree. You said you were going to go to school full time, and you said it was going to happen, and it did not happen. It happens for students all the time. Many students start off the college with goals and desires, dreams, and hopes, but it just doesn't happen. So we need to find a way to provide a vehicle of conversation to understand why this is not happening. Is it a lack of motivation? Is that what it is? Because, you know, a lack of motivation carries a powerful message. When you're supposed to do something, but you haven't done it. And especially if it's something that pertains to you and no one else. So the question is, why aren't you doing it? What is stopping you? What is preventing you? What is hindering you from doing this? So it signals something that is truly there if you're not doing it, and that is something that you want to do. Example, an accounting major who seizes every chance to work with children. In this example, if you're an accounting major, but every opportunity you want to work with children, to me that signals something. To me, that's simply saying this: you want to be in education. Although accounting may be your degree, but what your actions have shown is that you would rather be doing other things. When we have things like this, ladies and gentlemen, we need to stop and we need to think about it. We need to ponder on these ideas about what our actions say. As my mama says, action speaks louder than words, and this is the same thing. Just like if you have the students that they say they want to get there. Let's say we have a student starting off at Houston Community College, and their goal is to get an associate's degree and then transfer to the University of Houston. Well, after 5 years, and I've seen it because I've worked at the community college level, if they're still at the community college after 5 years and they're still not yet classified as a sophomore, then we need to understand, or we need to take a minute to stop to realize, why are they not doing what they need to do? And they need to have this conversation with themselves, and they need to heed the message of what is wisdom telling them? What is their experience telling them? What is it telling you? Let's look at this. Let's think about this. What we think we become. Let's focus on this YouTube video.
Still, it must be a bit disorientating, though. You're bound to be feeling.
What am I bound to be feeling? People don't think anymore. They feel. How are you feeling? Oh, I don't feel comfortable. Oh, I'm so sorry. We, the group, were feeling. Do you know, one of the great problems of our age is that we are governed by people who care more about feelings than they do about thoughts and ideas. Now, thoughts and ideas. That interests me. Ask me what I'm thinking.
What are you thinking?
What's your thoughts so they become words? What's your words so they become actions? What's your actions so they become habits? What's your habits so they become your character? What's your character for it becomes your destiny? What we think we become. I've always said that. And I think I am fine. But I do so appreciate your kind concern. Oh, do please answer that. Might be someone who needs you.
I absolutely love that as we talk about habits and we talk about our actions and what we speak and how there's a whole trail that goes along with that, because it's so true. When we look at our habits, I can't help but to stop and say, well, what are habits? Well, habits are this. They're scores of simple, small, repeated behaviors that combine to create a huge result. That's all habits are, okay? Little things along the way, and habits can be a snowball effect in order to give us what we want or if they're bad habits, they give us what we don't want. Although we may go to McDonald's and we get just a what is it, the dollar burger, we may get one a day. That's a small habit because we get it every day. McDouble. Oh, I'm just having a McDouble today. Oh, I'm just getting a McDouble tomorrow. Oh, there's a McDouble on Wednesday. And so our habit is we get a McDouble for lunch. Well, after 30 days of eating a McDouble a day, we may have a pound a day added. So we have to watch that. We have to watch our habits and watch what we do and pay attention to those, because eventually our habits will lead to us having a character. And when you confront a behavior that undermines your goals or creates a circumstance that you don't want, consider a new attitude. Okay? All habits can be changed. If you're out there and you're going, well, I need to lose X amount of pounds, but every single day you're going to buffet and you're eating more than you need or more than your body needs, then you need to do something about it. And that's the thing that we need to help students realize. If they have a desire to be better, if they have a desire to be successful, but what their habits are showing is something else, then we as educators have got to have an intervention to help them become a master student, because that's going to follow them throughout the rest of their life. Now the question is, how can you help students change their habits in your classroom without coddling them, without babying them? I think that's a fine line that educators tote all too often, is to be able to help students be successful, but at the same time maybe pushing them more than they need to be pushed. Meaning, specifically, you are there and you're doing more work than the students. That's what I mean by push. You're doing more work than the students when the student is actually following you behind. One change in behavior that seems insignificant at first can have effects that ripple through your life. Think about that. One change in behavior that seems insignificant at first can have effects that ripple through your life. If your goal, regardless of what it is, one little change can change everything. You have that student in your classroom that wants to go to college, and they may not be the best academically, but one small encouragement from you to help them to believe in themselves, that can make a difference. Maybe that's a habit that you as an educator, one small comment of compliments for a student can change their life. Now let's look at adopting a new behavior, because you know what, whenever we do something, whenever we change the way we do something, it's definitely not an easy process. It's not easy and it's not simple. And the way we do that, there's a 4-step process. We have to contemplate, we have to be determined, we have to put into action and maintain. So I keep using the weight example, and the reason I use the weight example is because actually I went through a process of seeing myself in the mirror and realized I need to lose weight because I was not happy with who I was. Then you think about students as they see themselves now more than ever, as bullying out there, as peer pressure is out there. Students will go through different things, not even just secondary or post-secondary education. So if I use my weight process, I had to contemplate. I had to contemplate on what I was doing. I had to contemplate on what I wanted to do, and I had to contemplate on where I saw myself in the future. A lot of contemplations went on for that. It's the same thing with students. They contemplate where they want to be, what they want to do, and where they see themselves in the future. Once you do that, there's determination. You looked at me, I was determined that I was going to not look like I looked, which I was not happy with. At that time, I weighed a little over 250 pounds, and now I am right under 200 pounds. I was determined to do it. I was determined. I was going to do whatever it took to make sure that I got and met the needs of where I wanted to be. It's the same thing with students. They contemplate. If they contemplate where they want to be, then they have to be determined to get there. And once you are determined to do something, I don't care how determined you are, basically, but until you put it into action, ACTION, till you put some major oomph behind it, you're not going to do anything. If the plane can be determined to take off, but until it starts to fly, until it starts to go down that runway, it's not going anywhere. And then, once you put into action, maintain. What are you going to do to keep it up? Okay? What are you going to do to make sure that you're going to meet your goal? Well, as of today, I'm still working out. Okay, it's been about 2.5 years, so I'm still maintaining. The plane, it's still flying. If you use that example, it is maintaining at an altitude of X feet or whatever the case is until its destination. So those are the things that are out there. The thing that I ask you is, what do you do to help your students adopt a new behavior? How? Let's say you have a troubled student in your classroom. How do you help that student adopt a new behavior? How do you assist that student with making changes for good? Because the changes for good that you have that student make is also going to be the master student quality. This is just the stages of change we just talked about. Contemplate. Basically, tell the truth, admit it, be truthful. If you're not honest and you're not telling the truth, it's never going to happen. We talked about being determined, okay? Consequences, determination, reward and punish. Consequences are life. And whenever we do something good, we always want someone to pat us back on the back. And maybe when we do something wrong, we don't want them to punish us, but we know that punishment is part of the game. So think about that. Action. Yeah, I said that earlier. You have to put it into action. And by this, put into action, think about choosing a new habit to replace an old one. Think about putting something else in its place. Think about rearranging your pattern of behaviors. Okay, that's going to help. And then, as I said earlier, maintain. The only way to maintain is to practice. Okay? Keep doing it. Make it into your routine. Make it as part of your daily life. Accept the feeling of discomfort, because whenever you maintain something, it's going to feel different. You may not be going to McDonald's every day at lunch, and that may feel a little different because you're used to the McDouble. But you know what? It's okay. It is okay that if you one day just drive in through McDonald's and get that McDouble, it's okay. Don't beat yourself up. I think all too often we beat ourselves up for things like this, when in essence there's no need to. It happened, we forgive, we forget, and we keep pushing forward. And sometimes I think we as educators, sometimes when we have the student in our room, let's say this student with who we had issues with, sometimes the students don't necessarily maintain because they're kids, and so they may fail at it. Or they may forget just because kids are kids, but then we as educators hold on to the judgment of that student. Well, help that student overcome and let go of that. Let them know that, yes, they did fail, but you know what? We're going to move forward. And when we're able to move forward, we're able to achieve great things. Let's look at tips on how we can help students become successful. And I hope that as you're able to maybe talk with your students, you can use and take these videos into consideration, and maybe it'll help you with your message as well.
We are the future, don't blow it for us.
Another minute.
Another minute.
Another day.
Another day.
Same thing
I
happens.
can't
Same
believe
old
it.
way. I keep hearing.
I think
same
I'm
song.
God.
I think the world's gone all wrong.
Now tell me, can you imagine a world with unity, love, peace, and happiness? Isn't that the way it should have been all along? I think most would just settle for half of that. I know I would. Ask yourself, when did the hate start?
I think that video would be a great video to show to your students to help them become master students in your classroom. I think that video would help them, would help you give an access to them, because it's kind of it's a video that has it has good music, and the music is cool, but at the same time the message speaks a lot, and I think it'll relate to the students. So that's it as far as today, as we talk about helping students to become master students. And I hope that today's session has been able to give you ideas, pointers, or whatnot, as you are able to discuss these things with students during advisory class and during advisory lessons and things like that, because it's a topic that keeps coming up. Here's a dimmer check. And this is what I want you to think about, because like every good session, there's always a test or a quiz at the end. And this is what I want you to think about as we come to a close. I want you to describe 10 qualities of a master student. I want you to tell me what are 5 values of obtaining a higher education. Why are the liberal arts important? How can you help a student change their behavior? And what is the significance of motivation? Those are your 5 questions for today's tests on helping students become a master student. Thank you for listening to this webinar. Again, my name is Reginald Peters. If you have any questions or comments, you can reach me at reginald.peters@springbrancisd.com, and I will be more than happy to talk to you. I'll be more than happy to respond to emails. Other than that, thank you for joining today's webinar, and I will see you next time.